So I guess, Terry, you can launch the meeting whenever you want. I guess we might give people a couple more minutes.
About 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just at, okay.
Why don't we go ahead and get started? And I imagine some other folks will be joining us shortly. I want to welcome you to the monthly meeting of the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit in Durham. We're very excited about our topic today, which is on the rail trail and its implications for affordable housing and transit. And we'll be getting to that business here shortly. Also want to acknowledge a word of appreciation for Brianna Van Belzen, who is again being our Zoom host. Any special instructions for today, Bree?
Thanks. Just simply, if you have any questions or need anything, please privately message me on the chat. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat, especially for Q&A. And anyone who's presenting, you can share your screen. And I will also be monitoring the Facebook live stream to see if there are any questions and comments on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bree. As is our custom, we have a spotlight presentation, which is a short update on organizations and events that are of concern to our coalition. And so I'm pleased to welcome from Bike Durham, John Talmadge, to do our spotlight. John, if you'll unmute yourself and proceed ahead.
Thanks, Terry, and thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about Bike Durham. It's good to see those of you who are on camera and see the names of the rest of you. I'm John Talmadge, Executive Director of Bike Durham. We're a local nonprofit advocacy organization that is working for a Durham where we have safe, affordable, and sustainable transportation for everyone, regardless of who they are or where they live. And this is germane to the coalition's interests because affordability, as we know, is not just the relationship between the cost of housing and the income that a household has, but it is also very much related to how much they have to spend on transportation costs. If you are relying on driving your car, it can be almost as much as the cost of your rental unit or your mortgage, depending upon how many miles you have to drive and the upkeep on the car. And in Durham, there are stark differences along racial lines about who has access to vehicles and transportation. There are latest data, 13% of Black households in Durham do not have access to a car, compared with only 5% of white households. And we have been investing in a transportation system that expects everyone to have access to a car. And that leaves out not only people who, because of affordability reasons, can't have a car, but if it's issues about disability, if it's age and your ability because of the law or your own physical ability to operate a vehicle, people are left behind because we have not equally invested in sidewalks, in safe crossings of our streets, in protected bicycle facilities, and in our transit system. So Bike Durham's work is largely around making sure that the city and the state DOT are investing adequately in a future transportation system that everyone can participate in. And we are prioritizing investments for those who have been left behind in the system. So that means focusing on people who are using transit today, people who are walking and biking because that is their form of transportation, and making sure that those neighborhoods where there are concentrations of people in that situation, that's where we do the first investments. As we're investing in our transit system, that we're focusing on the needs of current riders first and making the system excellent for them before we're spending money to attract people out of their cars. We think that if we build a system that's excellent for people who rely on it today, that excellent service is going to attract more and more people to it. And that's how we can build the future transit system that's safe, affordable, and sustainable for all of us. You can get more involved in our work. I'll send a link about how to sign up for our email list. Our website is bikedurham.org. And we are active in advocacy. We have an education program through our school system and a partnership with the city called Safe Routes to School. And we host events. May is Bike Month, so we will have more activity going on in the coming weeks. And the first of those will be at the city's Earth Day Festival. We're partnering with the city to have a Sustainable Transportation Expo down there at Durham Central Park. That's this Sunday from noon to 5. So you can come down, try out e-bikes, try out scooters, see the electric bus. And if you have kids or grandkids, they can come down and use the traffic garden and learn some bicycle skills.
Thank
I'll
you.
stop there and I'll drop that link in the chat. Thank you for the opportunity to share more about Bike Durham.
Wonderful, John. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more in the months and year to come on Bike Durham. And I want to turn now to our featured presentation, and Jim Svara, who's a member of the coalition, is going to serve not only as presenter but also as moderator here today. So and he'll have some other introductions for you all as we move through our program. So Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Gary, thank you so much, and welcome everyone. We're happy to be talking today about an important development that is coming to Durham. And here is the outline for the discussion we're going to have. And we see this as both a contributor to alternative transportation, and also it can be a contributor to affordable housing. But there are some issues related to that in terms of the potential for displacement and the need for new housing that we will talk about. So first, we will get an overview and a report on the status of the project from Rod Florence, the project manager for the rail trail with Durham City General Services Department. Then we'll talk about protecting and expanding affordable housing, linking to other bike trails that make up the Great Loop, and then we'll come back to Rod for an outline of opportunities for resident input in the developing the final stages and getting the rail trail underway. Rod, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I'm back again to talk some more about where we are. I think we met a month ago, and we are a little further along in the process, but not much further. We are going through our schematic design process, which includes a series of meetings to present the assessments we've done for areas along the trail, including the urban piece, the preservation piece, and the neighborhood piece, which are the three sections of the trail. First, we talked about the urban piece with staff, and then we talked about the preservation piece, and then we talked about the neighborhood piece. But in our last meeting with staff and some of our clients, let me back up a little bit. I am with General Services. I am the project manager for the project, and it's my responsibility to kind of get with our clients, which is DPR and the transportation department, to kind of gather feedback from them during our design process. There are more departments involved, but they kind of help direct our program and what ends up happening as it relates to the design of the project. One thing we talked about during our meeting last time was the many other components that aren't necessarily associated with just the design of the project. And that included the affordable housing piece that was kind of identified during the master plan portion of the project. And so there's affordable housing, there's stormwater impacts, there's planning, and how people adjacent to the trail can encroach onto the trail or acquire temporary easements to access the trail. And so there are many other departments that touch the trail, but right now we've been going through a series of meetings that include mainly transportation and DPR, and we're talking about the program. And so with that being said, since our last meeting, we met with the group again, and we talked about engagement. Our community partners have provided an engagement update of local residents adjacent to the trail. And it's kind of a preliminary piece of the engagement process. The engagement process will be continued throughout the project, but this initial piece is really just to conjure up excitement, get folks familiar with what's going on, get folks providing input for what they'd like to see, what options we have. And so that's like the community partner outreach piece. And we've gotten to a conclusion there, and that's what we presented to staff. And I say a conclusion, I mean like a summary point, because it's going to continue. And in that summary, the community partners will provide that summary to our design consultant, which is McAdams and Perkins and Will. And they will take that, and we will start our workshop, our public meeting phase. So I spoke to the group last week. We're waiting on the community partners to get that information to our McAdams and Perkins and Will phase, and then they'll start scheduling a workshop where we can come together as a group, as a community. We'll have some boards up, we'll have tracing paper out, we'll have folks there that can answer questions. We'll have a series of meetings. There will be several meetings, and we'll have it at a facility that a large group can come together. But that's generally what's next when it comes to engagement, and also kind of summarizing some of this preliminary study and assessment phase. And so that's one part of an update. The other part is, after we met last time, I set up a meeting with our executive team on the General Services Department to discuss the affordable housing components, because here at General Services, we really focus on getting the project constructed, and so going through the design, going through the construction. But I let my assistant director, Stacy Poston, and my director know, who's Gina Probst, that we need to address some of these other issues like affordable housing. And a lot of that's going to be done through my director talking to the community development director, who's Reginald and Gina, and them getting with our deputy city manager and our city manager, and working with planning to try to get some of these actions taken at a higher level, because they were identified in the master plan. We've shown kind of where they can happen. And so it's going to take some initiatives and some pushes by my executive team. And so we met with them, we went over that with them. I let them know that we met here, and that we are looking for them to kind of make some schedules and plans and action items, so that I can kind of report back to you guys as to what we're going to do going forward. And so that's kind of a quick, dirty overview. And I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Well, Rod, can you tell us at this point, what is the projected start of construction and the expected completion dates?
Sure. The expected start is spring of 24. And the expected completion is like winter of 24. Now, that is where we are, and that's based on some additional funding we got. That there is a chance that it could start earlier and finish earlier. Right now, that is the projected date.
But so started and completed within 2024.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And then what is the decision-making body about resolving exactly what features will be included, approving the final design for so the parks that get added or where housing might be reserved? Who are the decision makers?
You said for housing and parks, is that what you were asking about? For those kind of things?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the decisions for the program elements for the trail will be threefold. It'll be our design team will provide options for where these items can go, mainly the park side of it. The engagement process will give us feedback as to how we move forward with certain parks or the character of certain parks and what elements go there. And as far as warehousing, I mean, can you explain what do you mean? And like, so the funding we have is really for the trail and the linear park. And there may be some leftover remnants of what happens with the design of the trail, but it'll be kind of what's left over and not necessarily a proactive approach to where warehousing goes, but what this is where the trail goes. And so maybe there's some other elements that can accommodate other developments.
Okay, so some elements of some developments may be occurring after 2024. Is that a possibility?
That is a possibility. And so like transportation has been providing input on like the size of the trail, the size of the pedestrian piece on the trail. DPR has provided a lot of input on parks, what elements go there, how it can be maintained, what elements can be maintained there. And then of course, all of that stuff gets proposed and it goes through a value management process that also helps determine how much, how large, how many elements we get included in the actual design.
Okay.
Parks and transportation, and then of course the engagement component will help determine how those elements get defined and designed.
Okay. Well, let's bring up a couple other topics, and then we'll be coming back and forth to you, Rod. Jerry, would you like to share some thoughts about the concerns that have been expressed by some groups in Durham about the possibility that the bike trail, the rail trail, will contribute to displacement? And then what steps should we be considering? We're at the beginning stages, but what steps should we be considering that might be helpful for preventing displacement? What thoughts do you have?
One thing I'll start with is that the coalition has been involved with this project from its inception. We wrote a letter of support to receive the federal grant that the city received to make this project possible. And so it's important for the coalition and the voices associated with to keep weighing in. So Rod, I especially appreciate you coming back to us a couple times and with those updates and keeping us informed so that we can provide some input into how we, if we're staying ahead of this, can help perhaps ensure that there's not displacement due to gentrification that naturally occurs when you have these kind of improvements in any neighborhood. And so shortly here, Jim will be pulling up some, we have some maps that look at the currently what's called natural occurring affordable housing, NOAA, as it's referred to. both for 60% and 80% of the AMI that's in the neighborhood, as well as what's called legally binding affordable housing, which is the developer, owner, landlord has received funding to serve populations that are at or below certain area percentage of the area median income, those who need assistance with their rent, and has agreed to keep rents lower already. So those would remain in place. It's more the loss of the natural occurring affordable housing due to taxes going up that can happen after this kind of improvement. So I just want to make sure that all options are explored. Jim has a map that shows there's one publicly owned parcel that we know in the development of affordable housing anywhere in the city. This has been a critical element to ensure, because when the city owns the land, the city can say what it wants built there. It can dictate if there is affordable housing to be done there. So that's an important piece. Also, to just exhaust the possibilities of what rental assistance might be available, either in terms of vouchers. The Housing Authority has done project-based housing vouchers before that are tied to a specific development, or there might be other type of vouchers that could be tied to this area or development that occurred, which would be very important. And so I think Jim is just in the coalition, and we're wanting to assure that we have an ongoing place in this conversation. And those are a couple things off the top that we just wanted to know. Back to you, Jim.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, and a current proposal for the use of ARPA funds, the idea of creating a local housing voucher program has been put forward. So we will be exploring options as we move forward. Just to mention one other possibility. The city has made it easier to put in small units, accessory dwelling units on existing properties. And another area we will look into is whether there can be inducements for current property owners to add accessory dwelling units that might be affordable. Well, thank you, Terry. And let me turn then to this map that you referred to, and it is. Again, here we are with the outline. Let's go to the map. Okay. This map is drawing upon material that has been provided and research that's been done by Triangle J Council of Governments. And we'd like to express our thanks to Gina Colley, who I understand it from John Hodges Koppel, who's also here, that she has done the major data collection and analysis, and she's here to answer questions that anybody might have about these types of housing that we're referring to. This map shows the dotted line, shows the path of the rail trail extending from the current downtown train station up north, and then sort of going east a couple blocks north of Trinity Avenue. So here's 85, US 70 up above. You see Duke Park here to give you some landmarks. What TJ Cog has given us is an estimate of the existing affordable housing based on data from 2021. And we're waiting for 2022 data to be available to see if we can measure changes that have occurred. In trying to focus on the areas that we think are most relevant to the rail trail, we have been focusing on areas north of Main Street and west of Lower Roxborough. So let me explain what we mean by that. First of all, there is a lot of affordable housing. These yellow and orange dots are the legally binding affordable housing, and the green dots are naturally occurring, that is rental housing. In this copy of the map, you can't. There were shades of green that distinguished those that had only housing at 80% AMI and above, and those that had housing at a lower, at up to 60% AMI. And those don't show up here, but we have created a spreadsheet that transfers all of these relevant housing units and the number of units that are there. The logic for looking north of Main Street is that we're happy that there is affordable housing south of Main Street, and the residents of those publicly supported housing units can use the rail trail for recreation and to get to the parts of northwestern Durham and enjoy themselves. But we have a particular interest in helping people who live in the upper portions of the rail trail get to downtown and get to the transportation center that is obviously reflected by the central bus station and the central train station. And so we've been looking to the west and above the rail trail. There's some units over here in the corner behind the pictures of participants in the discussion here. And when we transferred those and the numbers to a spreadsheet, we found that there were in 2021 a total of 273 units affordable up to 80% of the area median income, and another 388 units that were affordable for 60% area median income or above. So that was, and we will be then looking at whether or not there have been any declines from 2021 and changes in rental levels. There were none currently, or none in 2021 at the affordable up to 30% area median income. So that is a need that we need to be addressing. The legally abiding affordable housing, the orange circles are the housing units that are already in place, 132 of them, and 51 they're in the planning stage. Now I explained about why we're interested in the area to the north and above the rail trail to help people get access to downtown and transportation stations. When you go to the east, we focused in our chart on the housing that was west of Roxborough in the lower portion, because as you get further to the south and the east, there will be access to other important transportation centers, such as Alston Street. So those, in terms of those residents are less likely to use the rail trail, but rather using other trails or going directly to those alternate sites. And let me call on Jenna. If you can unmute yourself. Are there any things I have stated incorrectly or anything more you want to say about these two types of housing, the NOAAs and the legally binding affordable housing?
Thanks, Jim. I thought you did a great job. Yeah, it's a lot to explain, and this does a great job. I think one thing you did mention when you look at the map online, it's an interactive online map that you can zoom and click on, and it'll give you more information on each of those dots. And also, yeah, the units that are affordable at 60% AMI are in a slightly lighter shade of green. I think that should be easier to see in the online version, but if not, let me know and I can adjust the coloring to make it more accessible. But yeah. Well,
thank you. Thank you. And again, thanks for all your work on this. And once we have the 2022 data, we will be circulating this again to the mailing list, along with our updated figures on the number of units. But we want more housing that's accessible to low income families, and there are two ways of doing that. One is to make sure we prevent displacement and protect existing, the naturally occurring existing rental units that are affordable, but also by adding additional housing. Now you see a couple badly drawn house emblems here on the diagram. Those were part of the rail trail master plan as infill housing. But it's up to, I guess we're still waiting for community development to give some guidance about what that housing would be like, how many units would be developed. There is land, some of it, one of these right across from the housing in these little boxes that have a P in the middle. Those are indicated as new park spaces along the trail, and there are 3 of them that are indicated there. We wonder if some of that park space might be better used for infill housing, if the land that's designated is feasible for housing construction. And then, as Terry mentioned, these red outlined shapes here, and also this blue outline over to the west of the rail trail, are publicly owned land where there would be obviously opportunities for more affordable housing to be constructed. So this is going to be a major focus as we want to ensure that people who are in further north and further west have an opportunity to get access and use this alternate means of transportation in order to get around town and to link up with bus service and potentially rail service in the future. Let me go to the final issue that we want to explore is that not only do we want the what was called on this map the belt line, now the rail trail, to be accessible, but we also want it to be connected to other trails that exist or are being planned in Durham that are referred to as the Great Loop concept. And you see this very interesting, intriguing connected area for Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest Durham that will get people around the city and once again get them to the central bus station, central rail station here, and in the future potentially a rail station, a commuter regional rail station on Alston Avenue next to the R.K. Kelly Bryant Bridge across 147. So the plans look great. There are a couple areas that are still undecided. These are the connector loops between the end of the rail trail and the beginning of the Goose Creek Trail. The other important connection is from the end of the northern end of the American Tobacco Trail to connect with the rail trail. This map shows one possible route, but I think this is going to require attention and working hard to persuade the American Tobacco Company to include a link between these 2 trails as they develop further their downtown campus. We also need to have more plans and get updates about how our Kelly Bryant trails, both north and south, are working and how they're going to be finalized. They're scheduled to start in the spring of 2024 as well. So we want to make sure that this would then again be a wonderful new connector in the center of Durham. Are there any questions that
Jim, we have a number of questions
Okay,
already
good.
in chat that we can go to, or comments, as well as
All
I
right.
would invite you to go under reactions and raise your hand if you have additional comments or questions. And while we're waiting for you to weigh in with those, I'll speak to a couple comments that have been made. First of all, I want to note Ideal's comment about a number of groups have been working on this for a couple of years, and she welcomes the coalition to its support of this of this undertaking, more or less welcomes us to the party. So thank you, Ideal, for that note. And also appreciate Drew noting in your chat some of the material that I think Ideal was referencing of where you can find more information that has been done, analysis that currently exists on this. So please check out those resources. Also, have a question from Becky, just wondering if there's anyone who might or is already doing or could do outreach to the residents of these places that live along this situation, to let them that they know what's coming. And so, Rod, I don't know if that's something you can speak to Becky's question.
There's been a lot of outreach activity. Rod, could you describe what's been done so far?
Our community partners have had several pop-up groups and meetings where they've informed residents, solicited input from residents, and we've gotten back as to some questions to folks along the trail, folks camping on the trail, folks living adjacent to the trail as to what's going on. And so we're going to have a website. We're going to have programs that will support providing information to folks, helping folks relocate if they're camping along the trail. There are going to be ongoing information sessions and workshops that would also help provide schedules as to when the design completes, when the bidding starts, when the construction starts, how long the construction will continue, and that kind of thing. And so we'll have many different resources of providing schedules and information for residents and folks along the trail who live adjacent to the trail.
Okay, we were going to get back to this in a minute, but Rod, when do you think the workshops will begin?
It's probably going to be within the next 2 months.
Oh, okay, very good. Becky, and then John Talmadge.
I was wondering, about the specific properties on the map, like the large NOAA properties seem to be prime candidates for redevelopment and rent increases and evictions and all that, And I'm wondering if there's somebody that would could contact them and see what they're up to and what they're thinking about, and find out ahead of time that they're going to sell their property and evict the people.
Okay. It needs to be explored and certainly by the cities and those who are working on the project. And I think we should explore that issue ourselves too. John?
Thanks. My question is for Jenna. I think that can you share a little bit more about how, like, the data set for what the cost of the housing is? And also maybe, are the green dots only multifamily units? It just seems like it's not representing as much housing that visually I'm guessing is lower cost housing. Macon Street is a gravel street that's sort of adjacent to a lot of that and has single family or duplex housings. Once you go another block to Green Street, there's a lot of duplexes that seem like they're likely to be lower cost housing. Are those part of your data set, or they're not even included?
So the data set for the naturally occurring affordable housing units is only multifamily. This is from originally the CoStar real estate database, where they list the current cost or price of bedroom or units by number of bedrooms. And then we take the housing and urban development income limits, which are based on the area median family income, and use those to calculate what the affordable rent would be at different percentages of AMI for a 1, 2, and 3 and 4 bedroom apartment. I have plenty of documentation I can send you that'll walk you through that step by step. There's also additional details in the map. If you click on the details icon, it'll explain that a little bit better. But yeah, the original source is the CoStar real estate database, which we have a paid subscription for. We download that multifamily unit information and then do the calculations on which units are affordable based on the HUD income limits.
So from that, it sounds like we're probably underrepresenting the naturally occurring affordable housing in that area right now when we're just showing those multifamily units. You know, some neighborhoods it's not going to be the case because other units are not affordable, but I would guess in this case we're underrepresenting what's there today in terms of affordability. Is that fair?
I can't say much to the single family affordability. I haven't looked at that data, but I'll take your word as somebody who knows that area better than myself, that there could be certainly some single family rental houses that would fall into those categories.
There's a question in the chat about whether we can get a link to this map. We will make that map available, I think once the data has been updated, and also share our spreadsheet about our count based on the number of units and multifamily housing. Any other questions that anyone has? Well,
What, Ideal, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I have a question.
good.
The one question I have, and excuse the loud noise, this storm is ridiculous. The question I have is, it took quite a bit of effort for local community advocates, which I mentioned in the chat, to bring affordable housing and displacement as a center point issue in trail development in Durham. And now, we know our timeline for Rail Trail, which is that it'll begin being built by 2024. And that does put a squeeze as things go at the government level in terms of their timing to identify potential parcels of land, resources to develop, and a plan to develop more affordable options that are close to the trail. I would like to know if the coalition would be interested in not making the same mistake of a delay to joining the advocacy, or doing the same for the rest of the trails that are in the pipeline for development, and follow along areas that are even more sensitive to displacement, and probably have also more options for naturally occurring affordable housing through East Durham specifically, thinking about the Kelly Bryant Bridge Trail. So I know that it is the community's desire to see this effort applied to all trail projects. And if we're asking community development and others to do this analysis and research, why not just do it for the whole loop and get on with it?
Ideal, thank you so much for those comments and for your contribution to community input, working on the project through the end of March. This discussion was meant to provide us with the background information to know where things stand now and what the big issues are. And now we need to decide what the coalition will be doing moving forward. And thanks to all the contributors to this discussion. We look forward to keeping you up to date and getting you involved as we move forward with this project. And I think we should, Harry, now go back to the reports that we have to cover. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all. Our first report comes from Wib Gully. So Wib, turn it over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you all. Thanks for the presentations on this. I was going to talk about the coalition's development of a statement on the Durham Transit Plan, and a lot of you all know a lot about this. The Durham Transit Plan is being developed. We'll talk about how will spend its transit funds over the next 20 years, almost a generation. And as with any situation like this, there's a lot of competing needs and competing priorities. And the coalition actually started 16 months ago or so, trying to dig into this, to hear from the staff members of the public bodies that are working on this, and to learn. And last fall, in a series of meetings, all of these are our public meetings, whether the monthly meetings like this or the policy committee meetings, trying to, again, learn more about it, ask questions, and also provide a place where others in the community could come with their questions and concerns. And then, I guess 5 or 6 months ago, a group of folks in the coalition started drafting a statement that would talk about our view of the transit plan, and not just try to come up with a statement, but we also went out and met with a variety of different key stakeholders in the community, other community-wide organizations that have been involved with these issues, also with some neighborhoods, including Walltown and Bragtown and Merrickmore, folks to talk about their concerns for it, and went through a good process. I think a lot of great feedback that's helped make this statement much better. And then a couple of weeks ago, the coordinating committee for the coalition, it had been talked about, the statement, at several policy committee meetings and coordinating committee meetings. The coordinating committee voted to adopt it, and I wanted to share with you all a sense of the high points, or the key points of that. And then also, I'm going to put in the chat if anybody wants to get back to me and to all of us with questions or comments and stuff. We'd love to hear from you. But in essence, the statement says there's 3 key priorities we believe going forward. The first one is we believe that racial equity requires that there be substantially improved bus services and bus facilities, including ADA compliant bus shelters, sidewalks, in historic Black neighborhoods that have been underserved, including the ones I just mentioned, plus Old Farm and Northeast Durham, as well as every other underserved community of color in Durham. The second thing it says is that economic justice, we feel like, requires the same for the economically transit-dependent neighborhoods in Durham that are currently underserved. And addressing these needs to be a first priority for the new transit plan. We add some specifics there about, we think that those improvements can start this year and should start this year, and call for them to begin this year. And we talk about specific improvements for the Bragtown neighborhood, including increased service on Route 9, 15-minute service, and shelters at several locations that serve that particular neighborhood. The second priority is we realize that even with the money from the transit funds, there's not going to be enough funds to do all the things that we need to do to improve the facilities like sidewalks and bus stops and bike lanes that need to be in the neighborhoods of Durham to make our transportation system and transit system work well. And so we call upon the County of Durham and the City of Durham to provide the additional funding that'll be needed to get there for those facilities, and suggest that diverse neighborhood groups could be established to advise and oversee development of those neighborhood plans and neighborhood infrastructure needs. That's the second priority. The third priority is we believe that Durham, to meet Durham is not just an island unto herself. Our transportation system is part of a regional transportation system, and we're not going to solve the kind of challenges we have for our regional transportation system over the next 20 years with just local bus alone. There has been presented a plan for a commuter rail line that would run from Durham to the park to Raleigh and East Wake County. And we say that we believe there needs to be rail passenger service, but it needs to be much more robust and substantial than the commuter rail line that's talked about. It needs to be passenger rail service that works not just during the day, weekdays, but also into the evenings, because a lot of folks work in healthcare facilities and in retail and in other places, and they need dependable public transportation options there as well. It also needs to serve on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays. And so we call for a more robust passenger rail service to be established, and that we put some, I guess, if you will, conditional understandings on that Durham would provide in the transit plan a fair share of funding for Durham's share of that, but that would be limited to about 10% of the total project costs. We say that the rail service needs to be accessible to a substantial portion of Durham's affordable housing residents. A recent study found that about 37% of our legally binding affordable housing is within 1 mile of that rail line, and I think that that's a fortunate circumstance for us to take advantage of. We call for all the property parcels along the rail line that are owned by Go Triangle or local governments, that they would be utilized for joint development to provide more affordable housing, because it just makes sense to put the affordable housing right at the station sites or near the station sites, where the people that depends on transit can get to it easily. They're the ones that need it the most. The statement goes on to talk about establishing a station at Alston Avenue and the kind of opportunities economically that opens up, and that there should be a comprehensive bike and pedestrian plan and bus plan that links all of the residential and activity centers to the passenger rail line. That needs to be in place before we get too far down the line, if you will. And that we finally say that the initial planning for all of these bus and the rail service, the planning, design, construction, operation, need to be done in an open and transparent and responsive way for the Durham community, that we want to see that the DBE, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprises standards that are substantial in Durham, that they are met, including Black-owned businesses reflective of at least 36% of the activity and the contracts and the business that's done for these things. And we also call for the establishment of diverse community groups to provide oversight, advice, and recommendations regarding the implementation of this new Durham transit plan. So that's the statement that was adopted by the coordinating committee on Monday, and we will be sending that on to the local elected officials at the county and at the city and at Go Triangle, who are all involved in this plan, and hope that it'll at least provide some help and support for doing good things over the next 20 years with our transit plan. Like I said in the chat, I've put my email address if folks want to share any thoughts or responses with it. We'd love to hear from you. With that, Jim and Terry, thank you all.
Thank you, Webb. Appreciate that. And you can send further comments to Webb at his email address as he suggested. We have a couple more of updates of things done at the coordinating committee. The first piece that I'm going to report out on briefly is in response to a request from a collaborative of 6 housing and services providers who are serving those who are unhoused and experiencing homelessness in our community. And it was a blanket endorsement of a thought sheet that they put out of looking as we look ahead at COVID funds that have been utilized for our homeless response, both with the city and county, and what was going to be needed to maintain that level of response. And then as well as some additional pieces that emerged that would help strengthen our community's response. And then also some capital needs there. It wasn't a specific request, but rather the beginning of a broad document that looked at the range of needs. And so the coalition responded by making a statement that we very much support these collaborative efforts. And this is with Durham Crisis Response Center, Families Moving Forward, Housing for New Hope, Project Access, Urban Ministries of Durham, and Reinvestment Partner. And we thought that it was a very important first step toward developing a comprehensive vision with specific strategies that will continue to work toward ending homelessness in Durham. That was sent to the city council. It was also meant to go to the county commissioners. I see we have a couple of commissioners on our call today, and you will be receiving this document this afternoon. So our apologies for that oversight, but we appreciate your interest in abiding leadership on this. An additional recommendation was made by the coalition in response to a request that came to us from Mayor O'Neill. Not exactly a request, but as some of y'all may have been on the call at our February meeting where our mayor spoke to us about the realities of people who have been in gangs or currently in gangs, the challenges they're having accessing affordable housing. And of course, this is quite a complex, difficult challenge, but an important one. And the coalition took up discussion of this, and we did send a recommendation back to the mayor as well as the city council members, encouraging her to consider developing a perhaps a larger, even larger task force panel that would include organizations and entities that are already working on this, everybody from the Gang Reduction Steering Committee to organizations that have a lot of expertise in this area, especially when thinking of the Durham County Criminal Justice Response Center that are already engaged, but we might try to widen that and perhaps look at some national models of response, such as Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, and an international model called Rapid Results Institute that can do short-term and long-term strategic planning. So just some ideas, and the coalition committed to appointing a couple people to serve on that if there is such a committee formed. But it clearly needs a comprehensive response because it's a very challenging situation, but we heard the mayor's plea and we would like to be part of a solution toward that. And that's the report on those two reports that went out to our city council and county commissioners. Jim?
I think Becky, you sent out another document. This was providing information about the areas that Terry just covered.
Yeah, I sent out the most recent document that went out this morning is the collaborative request that Terry was talking about. And previously there were two short statements, one of which referenced that, but I didn't send the whole, didn't get the whole document. I also sent Jenna's description of the data. There was a question about the data. I think it might have been answered in her description. And there's the link to the big map, maybe not yours was a printed off or a cut, something that you had drawn on. All this was the one that's the active interactive map. There's a link in that document that went out. And I see that Wendy has her hand up, and before we run out of time, we better let her talk and I should shut up.
Yes, Wendy, please.
Well, I just really wanted to quickly thank the coalition for all of your great work and these great reports. I want to quickly mention about the trails that I encourage everyone to identify any publicly controlled land to look at opportunities for doing public-private partnerships around affordable housing. Similarly, with great recommendations in the letter related to the Durham County Transit Plan, I want to encourage everyone to also urge the City Council to allocate more funding for transportation, do a transportation bond, allocate more funding for transit because we don't have enough local funding between the city and the county right now. And I want to say that there are tremendous opportunities and I hope you all have the TJ cog reports to do affordable housing in the commuter rail corridor and the station areas. And we have to look at integrating land use and transit to help address connect people to opportunity and address the racial and economic disparities. So I'm really excited about that. And lastly, this report about housing, we have ARPA funding right now, the city and the county. And so these recommendations about capital investments for people with mental health needs, substance use, and criminal justice backgrounds, we need this. We don't have it, and we absolutely need permanent supportive housing for to invest in systemic causes of things like gun violence in our community. So thank you. And I hope everyone will keep advocating for all this great work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. And one other piece that you'll receive in there that I overlooked mentioning was a recommendation that this was actually to the city, I think, with their funds, but all of this should go to all the county and the city. We'll make sure of that after this meeting, but it was for 6 million of the ARPA funds that go toward eviction prevention, rental assistance, because it's going to be, it continues to be a major issue here facing so many households in our city. So that will be included in that, and I think we'll send that again out to you all to make sure that both city and county folks receive it. And thank you for your comments. Anything else, Jim, before we adjourn?
Thank you all.
Webb, anything, Webb, to close us?
I just am so happy that we've had 2 members of the county commissioners and 1 former county commissioner with us, and also that apparently back from across the ocean, we have City Council member Leonardo Williams. And I saw that Leo had his hand up. I don't know if you had a question or comment you wanted to jump in. Leo, we're certainly going to resend that email to you.
No, no comments. I'm just listening in. I'm looking forward to reading it up. Sorry I missed it.
Oh, it's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Good to have you. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll adjourn our meeting and see y'all next month. Bye now.
Thank you all.
Have an awesome day, all. Enjoy.
Yeah.